If you enjoy running, you may experience physical discomforts. If you get tired quickly after a short run or want to run faster but can't, I've prepared strengthening exercises to do before and after running to help. Let's look at them together and follow along. Your running skills will improve. The first exercise starts with the ankles. Shift your weight onto your heels, then onto the balls of your feet, lifting your toes and then your heels, focusing on the sensation of your heels touching the ground and then your toes touching the ground. Make sure to really feel the sensation of supporting yourself on the ground with your feet. It's important to be aware of the sensations you feel in each part of your foot. Pay close attention to how it feels when your heel touches the ground and also when the front of your foot makes contact. Really focus on these sensations. What's especially important is to really notice how it feels when you put your weight on your toes. Since ultimately, when we run, we have to push the ground backward to move forward, it would be good to pay close attention to the sensations in your feet. To help you become more aware of this sensation, try lightly lifting and lowering your legs as you move. Raise your knee to about the middle of your thigh, then lower it back down to the floor, repeating this motion. Pay special attention to the feeling of supporting your weight first on the outer edge of your foot, especially the little toe side. It would be good to pay attention to this even when you're actually running. Now that you've felt the sensations in your feet, let's move on to an exercise that strengthens your foot muscles by using a bit more force. Imagine your jumping rope in place and try doing some light low jumps. While you're jumping like this, after 2 or 3 light jumps, do one jump as powerfully, quickly, and as high as you can. As I mentioned earlier, make sure to feel your weight on your toes as you do the movement. Throughout this exercise, keep your heels off the ground. And at the very end, as you push off the ground and your body lifts into the air, try to support your weight on your big toe as you push off. Another important point is that, as I mentioned before, your heels should not be touching the ground while you're jumping. And as you support your weight only with your toes, try to minimize the amount of time your toes stay in contact with the ground and jump lightly in that way. For those who find this movement difficult, don't try to jump high from the beginning. Even just jumping lightly at a low height, like you're skipping rope, can be very helpful as a strengthening exercise. So just doing this alone would be great. Now that the tough exercises are over, let's move on to a lighter, stretching-like exercise that targets the back of the thighs. Extend one leg forward, fully straighten your knee, then lift your toes high and pull them towards your body. As you bend your upper body forward, it's important to lower yourself enough so that your hands can reach the floor if possible. As you do this, focus on feeling the stretch along the entire back line of your leg, from your calf, behind your knee, all the way up to your hamstring. An important point here is to make sure your toes are pulled sufficiently toward your body as you do the movement. This way, even the muscles in the soles of your feet, as well as the nerves and blood vessels that run through them, are engaged. The key point is to really feel the stretch along the entire back side of your lower body. Now, to add one more thing and try the movement, when you actually run, the movement of your legs is involved. We often say that your legs should roll lightly. You want to move your legs as if they're drawing a smooth circle, creating that kind of fluid motion. As you bring your leg forward, your knee will naturally bend slightly and extend out in front to some extent. But as you pull that extended leg back towards your body, you need to pay close attention to the moment when your foot touches the ground. So after your leg extends forward as if you're kicking, it's important to pull it back toward your body so that when your foot touches the ground, it lands directly underneath your body. That's a key point to remember. So, when running, practicing the movement of pulling your extended leg back toward your body and placing your foot on the ground directly beneath you is a great way to develop a feel for the correct foot placement. I highly recommend practicing this movement. Next, we'll move on to hip mobility. When we talk about the hip joint, we're referring to the joint that connects the muscles of the buttocks. Smooth movement in this hip joint is essential for generating power in various types of running. As I showed you earlier, you need to be able to extend your leg forward in a long, straight motion. If you're someone who is aiming for better times, you also need to maintain a fully extended leg behind you in order to achieve a longer stride. When you do this, your torso will naturally start to twist from side to side as part of the movement. When your body twists, your pelvis naturally twists to both sides as well. In addition to this, even if your legs are moving forward and backward or are fixed in those positions, since your pelvis is twisting, your hip joints actually need to move through a very large range of motion relative to the pelvis. But if you don't have that kind of hip joint mobility, it's difficult to achieve the proper range of motion when running. So you should perform the movement like this, going from the outside to the inside and from the inside to the outside. As you can see from the movement being performed now, it's important to keep your torso and gaze facing forward and to maintain your posture throughout. When you're balancing on one leg, it's important to keep that leg as steady as possible without wobbling, maintaining your position so you can feel the tension in your foot and calf. Sensing that engagement helps you keep your balance and maintain proper posture, which is a key point. So make sure to stabilize your torso so it doesn't move and keep your knee bent at about 90 degrees as you repeat the movement like this. Next, we'll practice bringing the leg you lifted forward back toward your body and stepping down. This time, after lifting your leg and keeping your knee bent at about 90 degrees, we'll practice the key point of pulling it back toward your body before stepping down. In this movement, you can see that the knee rises high enough to reach about chest level. At the same time, the main thing you need to pay attention to is whether you're properly engaging your iliopsoas muscle, so make sure to check this carefully. Check whether you're engaging the muscles deep inside the crease of your pelvis. And from this movement, we'll take it a step further and practice the key point of powerfully pushing off the ground. As you bring your lightly raised leg down, try kicking it down a bit faster and harder with enough force that you can actually hear a sound from the ground. Keep repeating this motion. Earlier, when we practiced lifting and lowering the leg, we did it with the leg raised lower, right? So even when you lifted your leg like this, you checked whether you were properly using the muscles in your sole and whether your foot was landing in the right position as you performed the movement. Yes, you can think of this as a way to strengthen that aspect even more powerfully. You can try performing the movement by lightly lifting your leg, then powerfully kicking down to the ground, lifting lightly again, and then kicking down strongly, repeating this pattern. Now this time, while holding onto a wall or a pillar for support, we're going to do an exercise that can further improve the mobility of your hip joints. As I showed you earlier, we move the hip joint from the side to the inside, from the outside to the inside, performing the movement in that way. Moving your leg forward and backward well is basically the direction of leg movement when you run. So by making large movements forward and stretching your leg out long to the back, you can improve the mobility of your hip joint in the front and back directions with this exercise. And now let's also try to improve the mobility of the hip joint by moving it from the inside out like this. The hip joint needs to move well in various directions as a basic requirement, and even while these movements are happening, you need to be able to stably support your leg and generate force. That's why the stability of the hip joint is an extremely important point. So when moving your leg from the inside to the outside, try to control your body so that no other part except your leg moves. It would be good if you could move just your leg inward and outward like this. Now next is another area that often causes problems when running. This is the back of the thigh, often called the hamstring. Although we stretched this area earlier, now we're going to move it a bit more dynamically. Think of it as kicking your leg forward, stretching it upward as long as you can, and try to touch your hand and foot together as you perform the movement. Do it once with your left foot, then once with your right foot. Make sure your upper body doesn't lean backward. Instead, bend slightly forward so that your stomach and the front of your thigh feel like they're touching. That will help you perform the movement correctly. Yes, there was a brief interruption, but we're not letting it stop us. We're still working hard. I hope you all won't give up either and will practice diligently. Make sure to lift your legs high enough as you do the movement. Really focus on raising your legs as you go. Next, we're going to try running in place, kicking your heels up toward your buttocks as if you're tapping them. As you kick your heels up toward your buttocks, you should feel the tension in the area where the back of your knee bends. Also, check if you can feel the front thigh muscle stretching out fully. This is the sensation you want when your leg extends straight back as you run. If you apply this properly, you'll be able to run with the correct form. Now, although running mainly involves a lot of movement in the lower body, many people make the mistake of only moving their legs or only moving their arms, focusing solely on the movement of the arms and legs when they run. As I'm showing you now, the pelvis twists and the torso twists in the opposite direction of the pelvis, creating this twisting motion between the pelvis and the torso. It would be good to naturally twist your torso and pelvis almost to the point where it feels a bit loose or wobbly. Continuing from here, now focus only on the pelvis, just the pelvis. Try to keep your torso facing forward as much as possible and cross your legs over to the opposite side. As you do this, lift your knee up high enough so that it reaches about the height of your pelvis or navel. While doing this, twist your pelvis forward and pay attention to whether you feel tension in the side of your abdomen, specifically in the oblique muscles. It would be good to keep this point in mind as you try out this movement. Based on this sensation, if you actually run with your pelvis and torso twisting, you may find that your legs get very tired or, your knees hurt. Your calves might hurt too. For those of you who experience this, your fatigue can be greatly reduced. So I really encourage you to try this out. When you run, your upper body and arms naturally move back and forth, and many people say that they end up using more strength in their arms and upper body than they expected. For those people, correcting your running posture is, of course, a very important point. But often the muscles in your upper body or the balance in these areas is off. So now let's try lightly moving your arms like this as you exercise. As you do this, not only are you moving your arms, but there's also something called the scapulohumeral rhythm. This movement of the scapula, which we also call the shoulder blade, it would be good to check whether the movement of your shoulder blades is happening properly as you do this exercise. So by paying close attention to the movement of your arms like this, it would be good to check whether when you actually run, not just your arms, but also your shoulder blades are moving properly. Try following the exercises I showed you today for just 10 minutes before your run. You'll be able to achieve better results without injury. If you'd like to see more useful running tips like this in the future, please subscribe to the channel. I've also organized videos that will be helpful for everyone from beginners to marathon runners. You can check them out through the pinned comment. Thank you for watching the video until the end.